What up? It's March. We're back at it. We haven't done heat check in a while, but we're here to do another heat check episode. Eli, how you feeling, man? What's up?
I every time you play that music, it gets me going a little bit, and like, man, it's March. It's got the same kind of effect that the March Madness theme song has on me. So I'm
Let's
excited.
go.
We got conference tournaments. We got 10 different conferences have tournament games today. First March Madness bid will be awarded tonight, so it's just an exciting time right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you open it up and just talk about like what this time of year is for you and what you're looking forward to today.
Yeah, I think in particular, I'm looking for some of these bid stealing conferences. It's always fascinating to me, especially after last year when we saw Oregon State, Georgetown, even Georgia Tech went out and won high major leagues. But this year, I think there are plenty of capable teams that can go out and win mid major leagues and allow maybe a conference like the OVC to get two bids or allow the Mountain West to get an extra bid. And some of these teams I've talked about and I've written about on the website, but Morehead State has an opportunity tonight to beat a Murray State team that's already locked in. They're probably going to be a single-digit seed regardless of what happens. So Morehead State could get a victory. They've got Janai Broom, who's an absolute stud. He got a game-winning block yesterday on what would have been the game-winning three-pointer. Morehead State got there last year. They could definitely do it again. They had two late leads against Murray State in their games that they played. They came up empty both times, but could be three times a charm. And I think in the Missouri Valley, that one's a really interesting conference tournament because you have maybe the top two contenders playing in the semifinals matchup. Loyola Chicago, even though they're pretty far and away the metrics darling of this conference, they got the 4 seed after a bit of a slide down the stretch. Now they're playing the number 1 seed Northern Iowa today in the semifinals, and the winner gets either the 2 or the 3, which are Drake and Missouri State. And I think both Drake and Missouri State can go out and win the championship as well. And even Conference USA, North Texas, the way that they've played this season, if they win today, they could have an undefeated road record. I believe they've only had 4 losses all season long. And so even a Conference USA team in North Texas, the Mean Green under Grant McCaslin, they're probably above the cut line. And so even if they lose in the Conference USA tournament, that could be a 2-bid league as well. So I think the margins are really slim for a lot of these high major teams or even some mid-major teams that are right on that bubble, because I think some teams that aren't in the tournament picture right now could potentially get in by winning their conference tournament. So I look at Morehead State, I look at either Drake or Missouri State, maybe a UAB out of the Conference USA. We've talked at length about the Mountain West and maybe UNLV sliding in to win the Mountain West tournament. So a lot of really good, fascinating storylines out there about how this tournament picture could shape up in the coming days. And we've got 8 days left. We've got 8 days until we got a bracket. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. And I think the bracket that we have right now, it's not going to look the same tomorrow or the day after or next Sunday. So it's a great time of year to follow all these storylines.
Yeah, you brought up some great points about last year with Georgetown, Oregon State. Those teams definitely took some bids that people weren't expecting. There's always a team or 2 or 3 that take some bids. It's like, wait a minute, we didn't have those in our bracket. And then they already have the automatics from the league, like you said, Mountain West, or, you name a lot of different leagues. You mentioned the Loyola Northern Iowa matchup, I think, the semifinal, which is a big one for Loyola to be able to get a chance to get that game, get a quad 1 win, and then keep going where they, even if they don't win the whole thing, that they have a chance to get in. If they lose that game, I have heard some rumor, speculation that they may try to get a matchup against like maybe a BYU before the tournament starts.
Wow.
Just to play. Yeah, I don't know exactly when they would even do that. I guess next week, because they're both their conferences are in the conference tournament now.
Oh.
So they would play next week, similar to what we saw them do with San Francisco, which is Loyola Chicago's best win, I believe, to this point. So, yeah, that could be some must-see TV. There's a little wrinkle for you. The WAC conference, which we talk a little bit about on All Access. We have a show. Shout out to Kyle McDonald, who does a phenomenal job covering this league. And could be a 3-way tie. New Mexico State had sole possession. Play on the road to a traditional team that has not been very successful. And this year they're more successful than normal in Chicago State. But I say that to say they lost that game. So then it became a whole different ball game. Well, now they go play Stephen F. Austin at home, and Stephen F. Austin's probably the hottest team in the WAC here recently, and they played really well. And here they are, and they beat them at home. So now they're all kind of tied. So it comes down to a Utah Valley game for New Mexico State and Utah Valley, play, which Utah Valley is the co-champ from the year before, and still have Fardass Amac, who's probably could be the player of the year still in that league. He's played at an unbelievable level yet again. Coach Mark Madsen does a terrific job. So that's a tricky matchup for them. Whereas Seattle, new head coach, shout out to Chris Victor. He got his flowers, which that's your neck of the woods. You've been to some games there. Coach Victor was named the permanent head coach, which is what we were rooting for. He definitely deserves it. Playing for a championship, playing for a chance to play in the tournament. And then you have Stephen Austin, who is surging and beat New Mexico State on their home floor, which doesn't happen ever in the WAC. They don't lose at home. No. A huge win. They have some big-time freshmen playing well for them. They also have Gavin Casmill, who's playing really well for them inside. And they were ineligible last year to go to the tournament. Now they're back eligible. So this tournament, that doesn't even mention Sam Houston State, who's played well, Grand Canyon, who's played well in the conference tournament. But just for the regular season championship, there's a lot of scenarios where it could be a three-way tie, it could be a two-way tie, and it could be just one team. So some interesting games. But Seattle and Stephen F. Austin both played two teams that are in kind of the bottom 3 or 4 teams. So that's an interesting one to keep an eye on. And then we also just have some tournament matchups that are some good ones. So I'll let you kind of go backwards to some conference tournament stuff that's going on.
Yeah, well, I love your breakdown of the WAC, and that's been.
Oh, yeah, you can jump in on that too because you go to games, and you just talked to Chris Victor.
Yes, I did. I talked to Coach Victor yesterday, and he even told me, he said, look, this is the best the WAC has been maybe ever. And he said that there are legitimately 6 or 7 teams that could win this thing next week in Vegas. The benefit, though, is that the 1 and 2 seeds in this league, a lot like the OVC and the WCC, is they already get locked into the semifinals. So getting that top 2 seed is really important for whoever it may be. I still think it's going to be New Mexico State as the 1 and Seattle U as the 2. But Stephen F. Austin's playing as hot as anyone in this conference, or even in the nation. I think they're double-digit win streak at this point, playing really good basketball. But you don't want to play Sam Houston or Grand Canyon either. So it's a really fun league. And even Fardass Amac and Utah Valley, they've beat BYU this season. They've been capable of winning some big games. So the WAC's been awesome. And I think another conference I need to give a shout out to is the Big South. They're one of the early league tournaments in college basketball. And this has been just phenomenal entertainment. They've had so many games go to overtime. It seems like every game has gone down to the wire. Yesterday, we saw Longwood, which is still searching for its first ever March Madness bid. They almost went down in a heap in their quarterfinals matchup against a North Carolina A&T team that had a chance to win it at the free throw line, wasn't able to do it. And then Longwood won by 14 in overtime. And we saw some competitive matchups in the other part of the bracket. Campbell's been eliminated, but Gardner-Webb and the darling of the conference, Winthrop, always seems to be right in the mix, and they are again this year despite the coaching change. So this is going to be a fun one. And USC Upstate's even played really good basketball as well. Big South has had so many good games. They've got their new venue over in Charlotte, the Bojangles Coliseum. I've driven by a couple of times while I was out in that neck of the woods, and it's been high entertainment value in that conference. So a lot of big storylines. A-Sun has had some good games as well. I think Liberty was the far and away favorite of this conference, probably because they have easily the best player on the floor at all times in Darius McGee. But they had to work for their win against Lipscomb. They only won by 5 against a Lipscomb team. And I think the supporting cast of the A-Sun is maybe a little bit unheralded. Jacksonville and Jacksonville State. Bellarmine, which isn't eligible to get to the NCAA tournament, but the A-Sun still allows them to play. Bellarmine's been in the mix. They've been great since transitioning over to D1. But even though Liberty is kind of the name brand of the A-Sun, I don't know that they're necessarily going to run away with this thing. I'd be surprised if Jacksonville and Jacksonville State don't give this team a game in the championship, assuming they get there. But the early returns of the conference tournament week have been just tremendous. We've seen a lot of great games and a lot of interesting storylines out there. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That conference tournament has been great, and just the fact that there's a conference tournament already going on, we love it.
Yeah.
There's multiple, obviously, but Horizon's going on. I believe Sunbelt is just getting started too. There's some good basketball being played. Big West, WCC, is also started. There's a big matchup there between BYU and San Francisco. BYU is in many of the first four out, or even the next four out. They're in that conversation. Some of them people may be having them in, but a huge opportunity today for them to jump in and have a chance. So that's an interesting one as well. I love college basketball. This is March.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I think WCC is a really cool one too, because San Francisco's still in a comfortable position. I would say it's not a lock, but I think they're in a pretty comfortable position. And I think the fact that BYU was able to win their quarterfinals matchup against Loyola Marymount, I think now that San Francisco is playing a team that's top 50, top 60 in most metrics, even if they lose, it wouldn't be nearly as damaging as losing to a Loyola Marymount team that's way further down as far as the metrics are concerned. So even if they do fall today, I think it will be no worse than a quad 2 loss. So I don't think it's necessarily damaging. Obviously, you'd like to win it. I think a win probably seals San Francisco's spot in the NCAA tournament, and it does in the WCC championship game as well. But even the other side of the bracket, St. Mary's and Gonzaga, we just recently saw St. Mary's beat Gonzaga. So those two teams do not like each other. They're not shy about that. And, man, if St. Mary's could get another win against Gonzaga, if it leads to that position, then that is just some big storylines there. I don't know what seed St. Mary's could get with that, but I'd be surprised if they'd be any worse than a 6th seed at that point. So a lot of storylines out in the WCC.
Yeah, and got to highlight, as we talk tournaments now, we got our first ticket will be punched tonight with the OVC championship, Murray State and Moorhead. Moorhead went last year. Murray State has been one of the elite teams in college basketball, 29-2. They are back by far and legitimately look like they could be a Sweet 16 team the way that they played. So they play Moorhead State. They've played them already a couple times, and they've won both of them. So will be interesting to see if Moorhead can kind of get their magic back going and punch this ticket. It feels like right now the way Murray State's playing at such a high level that it's going to be hard for them to accomplish that task. But that's the beauty of March. You just never know. So that's the one to keep an eye on. 6:30 tonight, ESPN2. Definitely want to keep an eye on that. I'll just run through the quick matchups and then let Eli have it from there. Santa Clara's played some really good basketball. Portland, your neck of the woods, is 18-13 in year one under Shante Leggins, and which is an incredible thing to think about. And I think they had a 5-game hot streak here recently, and they play some good basketball. So they play tonight, 10:30 ESPN2. So if you're up, it'll be going down. That's the quarterfinal, and then BYU, of course, and San Francisco also play in the quarterfinal. Just gonna go through these. Denver, North Dakota State play in the Summit League quarterfinal. That's 7:30 tonight. Stanford, UNC Greensboro, 17-13 versus 20-10 in the quarterfinal. So 20-10 for Stanford. Who knew that?
Yeah.
Not many people talking about that. So shout out to Stanford doing their thing. Greensboro under their new coach as well. App State plays Georgia Southern, 6:30 in the quarterfinal of the Sun Belt. See what other tournament. We got Wagner and Long Island in a good one, 16-13 versus 20-5. Wagner's a favorite. I don't think they co-champ. Did they? Bryant won outright, I think, at the last minute. They played each other that last Saturday. Yeah. But Wagner definitely looking to get their first chance to get into the tournament. They've had a special year. So that'll be a good one to tune into. Jacksonville State, the ASUN champs, played Jacksonville. So Jacksonville we haven't talked about a lot, but Coach Jordan Mincy in his first year. I know they were undefeated at home. They still are undefeated at home, but they've had uh, an awesome season, and look forward to that matchup. That's 5 o'clock in the ASUN semifinal. Then we have South Dakota State, who is undefeated in Summit League play, which is incredible to think about. Both Murray and them undefeated conference play. Incredible to think about. They play Omaha, who's 5-24. So you would think South Dakota State will remain undefeated, but you never know. Furman and Mercer. Mercer got a big win last night, quarterfinal in the SoCon. I think you said this, Liberty and Bellarmine. Let's talk about this matchup before we go to the next ones. Liberty and Bellarmine. I know you said Liberty may not be the automatic this time. Bellarmine won the conference last year, or almost won it, and they had some rivalry going on between the two of them. Came down to the last game, so there's already some rivalry developing there. What do you think about this 4 o'clock match?
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. I saw these two teams play earlier in the year, and I think Bellarmine's got a pretty decent matchup in this one. I think that it's a team that plays mostly their starting five. They take care of the basketball and they shoot really well. And I think the key for them is really just slowing down Darius McGee, or at least holding him in check, because he's going to get 25, 30. And that's not an exaggeration. He's going to get that many just by playing. And I think even this time of year, you want the ball in the hands of your best player. And so McGee's going to get his own. I think just making sure that they don't have a secondary option from Liberty go off, because they've got capable players. Kyle Rode, Keegan McDowell has been really good. Blake Preston as well. Some of these guys are role players, but when they get going as well, I think it just makes Liberty that much more difficult to stop. Right. And we see this time and time again with these types of teams that are really reliant on one player. I think maybe Johnny Davis at Wisconsin kind of comes to mind.
Yep.
He can go off.
Although they are Big Ten champs, we got to give them that.
Yes, exactly. But I think just overall, when you have your secondary or third option on your team to really lift things up, get 10 or 15 and play good defense, I think it changes the outcome of the game. So Bellarmine has a long way to go defensively because their offense is so good. But I think they can make this interesting, and that could really shake up the ASUN tournament picture. I'd like to see Liberty get in just because Darius McGee is so much fun. He could put up 40 against a 3 or 4 seed, which would be so much fun to watch. But either way, it's chaos. I love chaos this time of year. I don't mind any upsets. It's fun.
Yeah, per 40 minutes, pound for pound. I think this is what Kevin Sweeney said last week, that McGee, he got our mid-major player of the week, or maybe we did a spotlight on one of the two, but the best scorer in the country. I mean, it's probably just easy to say, given his ability to score, his height, his per 40-minute average. He's a savage. So it'll be interesting to see. Like you said, he may go off, but that doesn't mean they're going to win. Yeah. So can they keep the other guys in check? We got a Drake Missouri State matchup, which is, was a heated matchup last year. 23-9, both teams. Not the teams that they're talked about like they were last year, but I mean, you're talking about one of the best other scorers in the country, who he may be in the conversation. He is in the conversation. He may be able to say he's better than, and that's Isaiah Mosley from Missouri State, a big-time scorer as well. Prim's inside. He's a big-time player. And then Drake went on that magical run and has a ton of people back. So that'll be a great one to tune into. That's 4 o'clock on CBS. Georgia State, Arkansas State in the tournament quarterfinal in Sunbelt. We got Bryant and Mount St. Mary's. Bryant did win the regular season, so this is a big one for them to just keep their run going. So stay tuned to that tournament matchup. We do have a non-tournament matchup. That's the top 25, USC and UCLA. Not to mention, I think there's a Duke-Carolina matchup or something possibly people have been talking about. We'll talk about Coach K at the end. What else we got? William and Mary Northeastern in the first round of the CAA. So that starts today. There's a ton of basketball game. Another top 25, Kansas and Texas. Number 6, Kansas versus Texas. Texas looking to move up the ranks. Kansas looking to kind of get themselves going before the tournament starts. You mentioned the UTEP and maybe you didn't mention. You mentioned North Texas. They play UTEP today. UTEP's played some great basketball under first-year head coach Joe Golding, starting to get it going, and they have a winning record. North Texas has won 15 in a row. So can they go on the road to another defensive team? 15 in a row is incredible, by the way.
Yeah.
North Texas this season has been magical. They deserve to have an at-large bid, especially winning that game. I think winning that game going into the tournament helps them to say it looks like there should be a lock to get an at-large. So pulling for those guys. Those are my boys. I work with those guys, so pulling for them. But I also work with Golding, so pulling for both. Will be a good game though. Two good defensive teams. I know it'll be a big one for UTEP to kind of have a signature win, and it's hard to keep that 15-game winning streak going. So, again, that'll be one to tune into for sure. Troy plays Little Rock. Troy's had an amazing season, 19-10 under Scott Cross. They're in the quarterfinals. Troy got the upset. Or excuse me, Little Rock got the upset, I believe, last game. So they're playing some good basketball. VMI Wofford, SoCon quarterfinal. 18-12 versus 18-12 Wofford versus 16-14. So two winning teams. So can go either way. Winthrop plays Gardner Webb in the Big South semis. See what other tournament. Texas State, the champion of regular season, plays Louisiana Lafayette. Big game. Both teams last year, Texas State won it. Was not able to win in the tournament. I believe they lost to Appalachian State, who is Dustin Kearns has done a tremendous job. T.J. Johnson, head coach at Texas State. Back-to-back coach of the year, back-to-back conference champion. So shout out to him. Chattanooga's been on fire. Citadel gets the upset against East Tennessee. So they play in the quarterfinal today. That's at 10 a.m. So that's coming soon. You mentioned Longwood playing UC Upstate. The Northern Iowa game we mentioned already, playing Loyola Chicago. So that's pretty much the tournament matchups. I have one outside matchup I'll bring up. I'll let you bring up one, and then we'll talk Coach K and his legacy before we close. So biased towards this team, I have no problem saying that, but I also have a lot of time watching this team because I do their broadcasts, and I believe they have the player of the year in the conference, and Dalen Kuntz, and that is Northern Colorado. And they're playing some elite basketball right now, and they have been one of the best teams in conference play on the road. I don't know why, but they're really good on the road, and they just find a way. And they play Montana State, who's already won the regular season. Danny Sprinkles had an incredible year with his team. These teams played the first conference game, I believe first conference game of the season back in December, and Northern Colorado was able to get the win, I believe, in overtime. So great matchup there in the Big Sky. It's already been solidified who's won the regular season, but Northern Colorado is a trending up team that has crazy three-point ability. They've had games where they've hit 17 threes in a game. I know Sean Paul mentioned them as a team to watch this March. So that's a good matchup, good mid-major matchup, 4 o'clock, ESPN Plus.
Yeah, I like that. I think the one that I want to note here is VCU, and they've been playing great basketball. They've won 11 of their last 12, and this team got off to a rough start, and they lost to 4 tournament teams in hindsight. But when we were looking up in November, and VCU was 3-4 with home losses to Wagner and Chattanooga, and also losing to Baylor and UConn, and almost lost to St. Peter's as well. It was kind of like, where is this VCU team going? But I think what needs to be noted there is all those games were without Ace Baldwin, who might be one of the best on-ball defenders in the entire nation. And VCU's really come around. They've gotten healthy after just a insane string of injuries in the offseason. They've gotten healthier now. They're playing as well as any team in all of college basketball. One of the best 3, 4, 5 defensive teams in the nation as well. And I think they've gone from almost looking like one of the weaker teams in the A-10 to now they're knocking on the door of getting an at-large bid. And so today they play at St. Louis against the top 60, top 70 type team.
St. Louis is good too.
Yeah, St. Louis is very good as well. And so if they're able to get that win, it would probably fall under quad 1 if I'm not mistaken. And I think that would probably put this team in a good position to pick up an at-large, which would just be a huge recovery for this Rams team after a pretty challenging start. But the splits between when Ace Baldwin was not on the team with an injury and now to when he's on the team, it's just been a whole different club. So I've got my eyes on VCU. The A-10 always seems to get one of those sneaky teams in that you just don't want to face. They get on the 11 line and do some damage. And I think that if you're a 6 or 7 seed having to go play maybe the 3rd or 4th best defensive team in the entire nation the first night, that does not sound like fun to me.
No, not at all. Not at all, especially on the neutral floor. Yeah, we talked to Coach J.D. Byers early in the season, and he did a terrific job kind of breaking down their team without their point guard and with them. And they're figuring it out, kind of like we talked about Boise, San Diego State, and the Mountain West. Teams that defensively can defend like that, but then start figuring out their offensive groove later in the year, really dangerous to play. And, yeah, you got to love the A-10. Quick shout-out to St. Louis. They lost their best player before the season started, and nobody thought they were going to be as good as they are. And they have done a terrific job. Point guard play has been stellar through the roof. And so definitely want to talk about them real quick or give them a quick shout-out. One more top 25 matchup I just want to mention, which is Arkansas and Tennessee. No true tournament implications, but 14 playing 13. If you're just interested in some good basketball, 10 a.m., get the day started off right. And then we have Duke, North Carolina, this storied legacy. We saw Roy Williams. Roy Williams didn't give us a chance. He kind of decided to bow out. But Coach K strategically, as we've seen from many of the legends, whether it's D. Wade, Kobe Bryant, Dirk Nowitzki, has announced early, like, this is our last season. So everyone's got a chance to kind of have the farewell tour. I think I read something this morning where the tickets to today's game is like $5,000 on average or something crazy. Or maybe it was floor side. Let me not say on average. Let me not. But
I think average is over 5K.
That's what I thought. Okay, I thought I was right on that. Okay,
no, you're right.
So yeah, just quick flowers for Coach K. I'll go first and just say that you have these people along the way that have changed the game, and whether you like them or whether you don't, you just have to be able to respect what he's done for the game. I believe 5 national championships, the amount of pros, what he's done with the USA team, success. And, we almost we don't want to give credit to greatness sometimes because they do it so consistently. And it don't get me wrong, it's a love or hate program now. You normally either love Duke or you hate him. And I haven't necessarily been on the love Duke side at any point in time in my life, but I respect the game. I respect Coach K, the ability that he's done to, be the face of college basketball as a coach. He's been the face, and Duke's been the program. And different than America's team in NFL football, the Cowboys, they actually win. Cowboys won at a point in time. I'm from Dallas. I can do that.
Man.
But yeah, you just got to give Coach K his flowers. He's his legacy will probably go down as being a GOAT in college basketball to this point. John Wooden gets his credit on wins and all that stuff, and maybe at some point somebody passes him. But to this point, what he's done with the USA team, what he's done at Duke, the recruiting that they've been able to consistently do, the pros that they've been able to have, and the longevity in one place. He's not one of those guys that tried the NBA. He was probably smart enough to get his fix through the USA basketball, but a lot of other coaches that you've seen that's been great at the college level like to take that challenge at the NBA level, and there's no knocks to that. But he's just been a fixture and a staple, and him coming from the pedigree of Bobby Knight, I think that is just a big part of college basketball. He's shaped what this, what the viewership and what the brand of college basketball. You can't associate college basketball and not have Coach K in that conversation. So got to give him his flowers. Like I said, I haven't been a Duke fan. I grew up in Michigan. I grew up a Fab Five fan, and I wasn't a fan of Duke. But yeah, you just got to give flowers, man. He's arguably the greatest of all time, and we send him his flowers and best of luck in whatever you do next. And good luck in the tournament, but I wouldn't be. You've done enough. You don't have to win it.
I thought something like that was coming, but I think just to wrap it up with that, I think for me personally, I've always been a fan of the underdogs and the mid majors and the lesser known teams. And I think not to go too bit of a full picture here, but I think myself growing up, always rooting against the teams that were winning all the time. I rooted against Kobe and the Lakers. I rooted against Duke. I rooted against, and it wasn't a sort of hatred, but I like to see new teams. I like to see fresh faces.
I think you represent a large population within our world. So keep going.
Yeah, but rooted against Tom Brady and the Patriots, and I think at some point, and I think a lot of this has to go back to Kobe's death and realizing like, okay, this is bigger than what's going on. It's just like appreciating dominance and just elite level of coaching or athleticism or just being that good at what you're doing. And so I think for me, maybe in the past, if this were to happen 5-10 years ago, I would have thought, okay, we're making a big deal of Coach K and this and that. But I think more of it now can be an appreciation of dominance and someone who's been a heavy advocate for the sport and for players in the sport. And Coach K has done a lot of standing up for playing freshmen, giving opportunities to a lot of guys to go make money playing basketball. And he's done a lot to advocate for the game. So, absolute flowers to Coach K. Like you said, I wouldn't mind if it's a different face winning the national title this year, but still, there's so much appreciation for what he's done to allow us to do what we do as well.
Yeah, in the end, Coach K, you're getting your flowers all year. You're getting it today, but March Madness is the year. No disrespect. No disrespect. Fun show today. Again, Coach K, I do definitely have that part about me that when you've coached and you know how hard it is to win one game, or if you're like we talked about on another show, when teams that have gotten ranked like Davidson or Wyoming or Colorado State or whoever, and then as soon as you have that major target, how your guys mentally handle it and how people come at you. I mean, Duke's had a target for a long time. Not early on, they weren't very good. We know that. But when they got good from that point on, they've had a target. So to have that kind of target in recruiting, they've been the bar. So to be the bar and stay up there as the bar, even as we see, Carolina and how things ended, Roy Williams was terrific too. Izzo's terrific right now. Boeheim, those older guys you're starting to see like they can't. It's hard to stay up there. It's hard to stay at the top, and everybody's gunning for you. And so I think that last part I'll say as a coach, knowing how hard it is to win one game, let alone win a championship, let alone sustain that kind of greatness, regardless how you really feel about them, you got to give them his respect. So, in other words, you got plenty to watch. Games are starting right now. Hopefully, you already got this tuned on and you're watching this on your phone or your laptop and you're ready to turn us off. And then you maybe have already turned this off. That's okay, too, because you can watch the replay. But we'll be back next week. Eli's the man. If you need to know where Eli the expert is, Heat Check CBB, log in, register. What's the other thing? Sign up, follow, like, all that. Subscribe. Let's go. All done.